Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Women Who Win panel. We are so thrilled to have you all here today in partnership with the University of Oregon Sports Product Management Program and Launchbreak. It's such an exciting time for us to explore how people who are passionate about sports and outdoor activities can leverage their passions into really exciting careers, and have an amazing panel to share that with us today. My name is Jennifer Nolfi, and I'm the director of the University of Oregon Masters in Sports Product Management program located in Portland, Oregon. I'll just share a little bit about that program and then hand it over to Launchbreak to share about their amazing work. Our program teaches the business of the product creation lifecycle for the sport and outdoor industry. It was developed in partnership with industry to really help people understand what it takes for someone to take a product from concept to market. We have 95% of our faculty are people who work in the industry, so we're bringing real-time case studies into the classroom. We have guest speakers. We have an innovation lab where our students actually make product. And then another unique aspect of our program is we go to Asia during the students' second year, so they can really visit factories and see how products are made, as well as visit a global marketplace. We're just excited to be celebrating our 10th anniversary this year, and we have about 500 alums with, I would say, around 90% placement. It is because of our strong industry engagement and our focus on students that we have such a high placement rate, and we're really excited to have Jordan, who is a current SPM student, and Kylee, who's an alum, join us on our panel today. So with that, I want to turn it over to Philippa to talk about the exciting work that Launchbreak is doing, and thank you all for joining us, and to Launchbreak and to our panelists for making time for us today.
Great. Thanks so much, Jennifer. We're so happy to do this event with Oregon. Good evening and welcome, everybody. I'm Philippa Portnoy. I'm one of the co-founders of Launchbreak. And for those of you who don't know what we do, we are a new networking and shared interest platform of over 2,000 women athletes who have competed or compete collegiately or professionally. We offer mentoring, a job board, a thriving network for entrepreneurs in sports and other fields, and events with industry leaders. We are so happy to present tonight's event with our partner, the University of Oregon Sports Product Management Program. Thanks so much to Francine Haddon and Jennifer Nolfi for all of their support. They have been partnering with us since the beginning, and we are so grateful. Thank you so much also to our panelists and our moderator for their time this evening. At the end of the panel, there will be a Q&A, so please put any questions you have into the YouTube comments, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Now I'm happy to turn the program over to our moderator, Cynthia Howard. Cynthia is unbelievable. She's a former two-sport athlete from UVA with 13 years at the PGA Tour and 11 years at Sports Illustrated. She is a powerhouse and is now a partner in a women-owned sports marketing agency named Sturgis Sports Group. So Cynthia, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Cynthia Howard. I'm a partner at Sturgis Sports Group, and I'm thrilled to be your moderator today for this powerful and timely conversation of women who win. Today's event, hosted by the University of Oregon's Sports Product Management Program and Launchbreak, is more about than just athletic achievements. It's about transformation, resilience, leadership, and the power of women athletes shaping industries far beyond the playing field. As a former D1 athlete myself and someone who spent years in sports media and marketing, I've seen firsthand how discipline, drive, and teamwork we learn in sports becomes our superpowers in our careers. Our incredible panelists today embody that truth, and they're going to share stories, insights, and lessons that are not only inspiring, but deeply practical for athletes, students, professionals, and allies in every corner of sport and business. This is a space for honesty, energy, and connection. So thank you for showing up, and let's dive in. So what I'm going to do is introduce each of the panelists. After I introduce each one, I'm going to ask them to answer a couple questions just to get going. So first up, we have Melanie Mitchell, an accomplished leader in branding, digital marketing, and media, particularly in the world of running and endurance sports. With over 25 years of experience across omni-channel retail and storytelling, she's now at Outside Inc., where she helps define how athletes connect with content and community. Melanie, can you briefly share your journey as an athlete, what sport you played, and how that shaped your early identity? And then I'm going to ask you, at what point during your athletic career did you start thinking seriously about life after sports?
Hello, it's great to be here. Thank you so much. This is such a great chance for us all to get together here and really talk about, who we are as women and who we are as professionals and who we were or are as athletes. I was a collegiate swimmer back in the UK a long time ago. And again, it's really quite interesting. Post collegiate career, I actually found a whole new sport. Triathlon was just in its infancy as I left college, and I was one of those weird people that took it up and in the beginnings of the sport. And 6 age groups later, I'm still doing it. Sport didn't end for me after college; it just evolved, and all of the things that I learned from becoming an older athlete and becoming an endurance athlete. A lot of endurance athletes are not collegiate age. Really helped to keep me motivated in my career, to keep showing up. It definitely allowed me to move from being an athlete at college and the academic environment into a corporate environment. I think for a lot of people, just in general, leaving college, it is very hard to leave that academic safety net and go out into the real world. And keeping active as an athlete was a good way for me to transition over into that new lifestyle.
Thank you. And did you, at any point, Melanie, during your athletic career, did you start thinking seriously about life after sports, or it just kind of evolved, like you said?
No, it did evolve. And again, just coming from the degree program that I was, sport in the UK is very different from the US. It is not as serious, which is why a lot of our athletes from the UK come over to the US for college. So it was always translated to us as academics come first. And what happens after. I did a very practical degree, much like the one here at University of Oregon, where a lot of it was a marketing degree, it was a language degree, was talking about what comes next. There was a lot of internships. So we were always pushed towards what comes next. And I feel very fortunate that was around at the time that I was at university. So yeah, no, it was always there in the background. But as an athlete, I enjoyed being an athlete. It was never going to be my career. I was never going to get to the Olympics. But it was something that was very important to me. And obviously now we have all the data that show the women who were collegiate athletes have become these leaders in industry and in corporate positions now. I was oblivious to that at the time, but I now know the skills that I was learning during that time were absolutely priceless.
Excellent. Aren't we lucky? Next, we welcome Darrien Peoples, a powerhouse in footwear development and innovation. At Ariat, she leads through her philosophy of people, product, and process, drawing from years of leadership and a strong foundation in sport and design. I'm going to ask the same questions, Darrien, in terms of your journey as an athlete, what sport you played, how that shaped your early identity, and then at what point during your athletic career did you start thinking more seriously about life after sports?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity. For me, I had the honor of actually playing on a national championship volleyball team at Portland State University. And so, as most athletes, that's your life for a very long time. And once that ended, I knew for myself that I loved sports and I loved fashion. And so growing up in the Northwest, it was a very easy translation to find that industry there. And how I was able to marry those passions was really getting started in the footwear and apparel industry. So I've spent the last 20 plus years working for the best footwear companies in the world, Nike, Adidas, UGG, and now at Ariat. Transitioning out of sports many years ago as, a top performing athlete is challenging but you also find different ways to channel that energy. And so I really found it within the industry because I was always connected to athletes, athlete-minded people, and products that help support athletes. And from there, having a family and then raising a daughter who also turned out to be a D1 volleyball player. So I've stayed connected to sport for a very long time, and it's nothing that ever goes away. It's always with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Kylee O'Connor Harrell, and she is a UO SPM alumni. She calls herself a double duck, which I just learned this term. Thank you, Kylee, which means she did undergrad and graduate. You guys all know that. It's a new word for me. Kylee was a track and field athlete for the Ducks. Today, she's applying that athletic insight in her work at New Balance, where she helps develop performance running products for athletes at every level. I'm going to ask the same questions, Kylee. If you could share your journey as an athlete, what sport you played. We already talked about a little bit about track and field. I'm sure you played other things, and how that shaped your early identity. And then at what point during your athletic career did you start thinking seriously about life after sports?
Yes, thanks, Cynthia, and thanks for having me. Excited to be here. But I grew up in Eugene, Oregon, Tracktown, USA, and so track and running has always been very essential to who I am. Growing up, I did about every sport you can think of. In high school, I lettered in 6 different sports, so I never really focused on anything, but I really valued that background and being able to have different expertise in different kinds of sports and not get burnt out in one singular sport. Then going into undergrad, as you mentioned, I ran track at Oregon. I focused on the 400-meter hurdles and heptathlon. And it truly was that passion for product that I came to find in the heptathlon that led me to where I am today. The hep is 7 events over 2 days. And so you have a ton of different disciplines that I was training for day in and day out, which also meant I had a ton of different shoes. So whether it was my sprint spikes or my high jump spikes or my shot put shoes or my jab boots, whatever it was, I got to see the impact that the footwear made on me, not only from a functional standpoint, but the confidence it would instill in me when I towed the line. I felt prepared and poised to take on whatever was in front of me. I would say that when it comes to life after sports, I'm still very much involved with sports, not only through my job and, as you noted, creating products for some of the best athletes in the world, but I also play professional women's tackle football currently. So I'm based in Boston, but I play for the Kansas City Glory out in the Midwest, and we're in season now. So we've got playoffs in Tennessee coming up here in a few weeks, but I still love to be involved in athletics, and it's very fun to be involved in women's tackle right now in the Women's National Football Conference, because it is such a growing sport, and we're on this precipice moment of sport and culture and women's sports in general, and it's exciting to see the boom. And so I really don't think I'll ever get to a point where sports aren't a part of my life, no matter what it is, whether I go around the corner and play some pickleball or want to go shoot some hoops, go for a jog. I think I'll always keep sports at the core of what I do, if in the least to keep me mentally sane.
So 7 pairs of shoes for one event. So how many pairs of shoes do you have now in your life? Just ask.
Well, luckily for football, I only need a pair of cleats, so I don't need 7 like back in my heptathlon days.
Wow, that is insane. Okay. Wow. Thank you. Jordan. Finally, Jordan Wilmoth, an engineer, a mentor, and a former D1 basketball player. Jordan's unique blend of sports, coaching, and STEM leadership makes her perspective incredibly dynamic. And she's currently completing her master's at OU's SPM program. Jordan, same questions. Can you briefly please share your journey as an athlete, what sport you played? We already talked about basketball. Again, I'm sure it's even more than that, and how that shaped your early identity. And then at what point during your athletic career did you decide, what am I going to do next? And what's my life after sports?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Very grateful to be around a group of women that have kind of gone through the same journey I have. But yeah, I started off, played every sport, just like Kylee. I danced, I played soccer, played a little baseball, but there was just something about the sport of basketball, that intrigued me, and that I fell in love with from an early age. I had a lot of cousins who played basketball and played at the collegiate level, so it became kind of a passion of mine just watching them go through it. I was fortunate enough to play, at a very elite level, on the travel circuit, played on a top 10 team, in the country at the time, played against the best of the best. Actually, Sabrina Ionescu is somebody who was in my age group and I played against. And from there, I went to the University of Dayton, where I played D1 basketball, like you said, and also studied electrical engineering, which many could say is not too easy, but I made it happen, in 4 years. Plen- Spent plenty of summers, staying grinding on the engineering side as well as basketball side, and I like to joke and say, won a lot of rings on the court as well as off the court in terms of getting that degree. Um, but there was just something always missing, I felt like. I definitely come from a background where Caribbean culture, is my background, and school is definitely instilled in me. So thinking about what life would be after basketball started from an early age, from when I was in middle school, and that's something I still preach to this day, because one day the basketball will stop bouncing. So moving forward, I kind of just was looking at ways, hey, how can I blend my technical background with my athletic skill? How can I be in a space where two of my passions and loves, could marry each other? And through some mentoring and coaching that I got into the past few years, something I didn't expect to do kind of drove that passion even further and led me to the University of Oregon, sports product management program, where, I'm able to, kind of do both of those things while also being able to share like some of my passions like sneakers, culture. I think that's really big in this space, storytelling. These are all things that I just did naturally. I didn't know that you could actually have a career out of it. So it's been definitely very exciting, fun, exhilarating, to be in a space that I'm able to do that while also, empowering the next generation. A lot of people have helped me grow in the position that I am today. And I think one of my biggest whys is just paying that forward and doing it for the younger female athletes out there. So yeah, that's kind of my journey.
And you forward. You're jumping on your shoulders. I love that so much. Okay, so what I'd like to do is transition a little bit from athletic skills to career success, because I think one of the most fascinating things about former athletes is how the mindset and skills developed through your sport carry into every corner of our careers. So I want to talk a little bit more about that translation. And I have a question for each of you. We'll start with Darrien. In your product development leadership role, what skills from your athletic background have helped most? Was it process, grit, or something else?
Oh boy. I mean, probably all of that. I think it really starts with teamwork, because as you move up into leadership roles, you need to understand, what it is to build a team, how to keep a team motivated, how you fit within your team, coachability. Um, you know, I think some of the skills I learned from knowing how to win, and hopefully being able to translate that, but also knowing how to lose, and it's not really knowing how, but learning from the losses, right? There's no shame in losing, whether that's, on the quarter in business, if you learn from it and grow from it. So, and then I think lastly, just really taking risks, and not being afraid to try something new, were all skills that sort of really helped moving into leadership type roles, and things that I try to share with those I work with, and also just practice in my daily life.
Nice. Thank you. Melanie, I know this, you have had to deal with this in your endurance athletic prowess, but how did the discipline or handling pressure as an athlete prepare you for leading branding initiatives in a fast-paced media environment?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think anyone who reads anything online, on digital, on paper, knows that media has changed radically over the last 20 years. Never a dull moment. And I think with endurance training, again, you've got a goal at the end. No day is the same. anything and everything can go wrong. And again, just sort of not underselling that sports experience, and then really looking at, how you approach training as an endurance athlete. It's about structure. You can't, there's no quick fix in endurance training. It's micro goals, it's mastering a skill. And I think that's really shaped my leadership style. I'm very grounded in consistency. I have a team mindset. Even though triathlon is a very individual sport, it takes a village to do an Ironman. And all of those sort of come into it. Really what I've done with teams that I have led in really sort of looking at, for example, a rebranding of a publication I've done, or the launching of a new website, or, all of these kinds of long-term projects really has been, a lot of companies do have very formal ways of measuring progress, that's particular to their corporate culture. But I've always challenged teams that I've worked with and myself to also have your own metrics of measurement. I sort of have definitely brought that back to, how I look at endurance training. It's been like, okay, you have a push period, and then you sort of have a recovery week, and then another push period and a recovery week. So it's almost like an IT background where you're doing sprints, and then you regroup, you decide what you need to change, what you need to do better. And I've definitely taken that approach in my own career, and I've encouraged my teams to have those micro goals for themselves that might be different from what the company is actually measuring. And yeah, that's really how, I have approached my career, and it took me a while to get to that point. And I do think, really how I, as a now more mature person in my career, really want to sort of start to look at how do I pay this back, is had I had this experience when I was in my 20s, early on in my career would have radically moved forward at a faster pace. And I think, my advice to athletes out there, to people on this course out there, is to really think about, how can you connect with people? How can I help people? I founded a coaching company to mentor athletes in this way. Because again, I think women today, in particular women athletes that I deal with, but really any athlete, is use all the tools you have in your toolbox, and really don't undersell what the sport experience can give you, even though you might not have had time to, do 18 internships while you were in undergrad. But, turning up for a 5 a.m. practice, the time management, the high stakes, all of that leading with structure that you bring to the table are all really, really valuable skills. And again, the sooner an athlete can realize those skills and then translate them into a different part of their career, it really does pay off. I'd say every day I pull into what I do every day in my training into how I show up at work as well.
Wow, that's great advice. Thank you. Kylee, coming from track and field to product management, how did your competitive mindset play a role? Did it ever clash with corporate environment, or did it elevate your impact?
Yeah, I am definitely incredibly competitive, but I think that's an amazing asset and something you really have to be if you're in this industry. There's obviously competition with others, but I think even more so being competitive within yourself and always striving for growth. Whether when it comes to the product creation, we're constantly innovating and trying to push the needle forward. So thinking like, how can we grow? How can we evolve? How can we get better? If you don't have that kind of competitive edge and mindset, you're going to become stagnant. Our CMO and SVP, Chris Davis, likes to say growth and comfort cannot coexist. And I think that's something I love to live by, because I love a challenge, and I truly think you're not going to grow and be able to take advantage of challenges if you're not uncomfortable. So it's something that I think my competitiveness helps open space for me to feel uncomfortable and be prepared for those types of situations.
Growth and comfort can't coexist. I like that. Jordan, you've bridged engineering, mentorship, and sport. How has teamwork or a high performance mindset translated into your STEM career?
Oh, absolutely. and even just going off the teamwork thing, I do a lot of that right now within the program and the team that I'm on. I think number one is just time management. Many can call me crazy for the amount of things I put on my plate, but I think at the end of the day, one thing basketball did teach me and strategically showed me was how to manage my time and how to effectively do that to the best of my ability. Whether, looking back, I was waking up at 4 a.m. for 6 a.m. practice because I needed to get my body ready. I needed to mentally get ready for the practice at hand. I needed to read the scout prior to practice. So just doing the things beforehand to make sure that the effort that I put out on the court is at the highest ability. And that translates right into the working world or on a team, coming prepared to team meetings, coming to presentations prepared. So I definitely taken that aspect of basketball and put it into the work I do now. And I just think confidence. I think one thing basketball and being on a team has taught me is confidence and communication from day one that I decided to play at an elite level. Talking was a big thing. Whether you liked it or not, you had to talk to your teammates on and off the court, whether you sat on the bench the entire game, cheering on your teammates and supporting them, or being on the court and letting your teammate know if a screen's coming by and looking at that in the team and work aspect. That's a really big part of who I am, communication and understanding how my teammates are feeling, or if they need assistance on something. So just kind of translating that confidence and speaking up for others or speaking up for myself or what our team needs is definitely very key and something that's translated into where I am today.
Awesome. Thank you. Next, I want to talk a little bit about career reinvention. And so when we leave competitive sports, whether it's by choice or circumstance, it's never easy, right? I'd love to talk a little about the emotional and professional shifts you each experienced in that transition. I'll start with Melanie and then I'll go to Darrien. What is your biggest challenge you faced when transitioning out of competitive sports and how did you navigate it?
I think I mentioned it before. Yeah, my swimming time with my team ended. That was really what I missed the most. Was it was a team. We turned up every day. Let's say it was a bit of psychology, therapist. We were all of those things. I moved from a smaller city down to London. I was in a big city. I had a completely different, my anchor had gone. And that's actually when I picked up a triathlon magazine in Charing Cross Station one evening on my commute home and thought, who are these crazy people? Sign me up. And I found another sport. And I was very lucky because triathlon, as I said, was a very emerging sport at the time. It was all new. It was very, very amateur. It was fantastic. So I transitioned by finding another sport.
Yeah.
I was not working in sport at the time. I took a different career direction with my marketing career. But what that has given me, and I lived in, 3 different countries. When I moved countries, I automatically had a community there. So while my career was changing as I moved countries, I automatically could turn up at the local triathlon club or the swimming team, master swim team, and I had a community. So I actually found it wasn't that difficult because I found something else, and it was a different sport than I had done. So much like Kylee now doing touch football, it opened up a whole new world for me. And who knew that 20 years later, I was a brand director for women's running and the endurance brands at Outside Inc., including triathlete, and it completely shaped my life. So sort of I diverged and then I came back again. So I feel very lucky in that regard, that I was definitely a period of, I feel a little bit lost after I'd left university, but I think that was also leaving an academic environment and having to go into the real world with people who were very, very different. I mean, I think, Jordan and Kylee, I'm sure you'll agree, when you move on, you have to work with a lot of different people, and some are less motivated than others, and there's lots of different personalities. And I just think it's a period of growing up professionally, and so having a sport that I felt very comfortable in, even though I was learning new skills, was a way to sort of ease that transition. And again, when you move countries, when you move companies, to have that consistency of the sport that came with me was, I think, one of my greatest gifts that I have received from the universe.
Nice. Darrien, how about yourself when you transitioned out of playing very high level volleyball? How did you navigate it?
You know, looking back, it was really interesting because I was burnt out. That might not be a popular thing to say, but I was done when I was done for a while. I didn't want to look at the volleyball court. I didn't want to look at a gym. I didn't want to think about it. But then, there's nothing quite like it when you're out on the court with, people that are like-minded, and you're out there grinding together and working hard together. And I was blessed enough to fall into the industry of sportswear, and I was surrounded with people that were like-minded. And so, I remember when I worked at Nike, and one of the mottos at the time was, if you have a body, you're an athlete. And, you'd be sitting in these big rooms, and they'd have these amazing videos that would play, and you'd get some similar experiences or rushes where you'd get the goosebumps and the chills because you'd be seeing the best athletes in the world on these videos, really celebrating sport and all the achievements. So, it was kind of twofold for me. I was burnt out from the sport that I loved so much, but I was reintroduced to sport through these companies in a new lens, and it gave me that same sense of accomplishment and joy that I had. And then I had to find new things to love, whether it was recreational volleyball, through one of the companies I worked with, or turning to hiking or spinning or kickboxing, whatever it was. I had to find joy in different ways. And then was lucky enough for my daughter to really love volleyball. So I got to love it almost twice, because in a new way when she joined her journey in that sport. So it wasn't easy, but it was just a blessing all the way across. I mean, I've stayed connected through it, through each step of the way, and just has brought me so much joy in my career.
Oh man, that's special that your daughter's playing. That's great. Kylee and Jordan, I have some specific questions since you're kind of in the middle of it now. But Kylee, was your path into sports product management intentional, or did it evolve organically?
Yeah, it definitely was an evolving situation. When I graduated undergrad, I initially went and worked in tech PR for a few years in San Francisco. And I got to work with a lot of cool startups and learned a lot about quick, high growth companies and how to help them, publicize what they're doing and make the most of it. But I wasn't passionate about what I was doing at its core. And that's really what inspired me to go back to school. And I found the SPM program, and it was that passion for product that I mentioned that stemmed from my time doing that triathlon that, encouraged me to really make that leap. And I'm so glad I did, because the SPM program was the most incredible 18 months. And on top of learning all I needed to know about the product creation process and be completely prepared for a career in product management, I also gained so many incredible friends throughout the program who I still keep in touch with, who work at a number of brands in the industry. And I learned so many skills that ultimately helped me land my job at New Balance, like how to tell my story and how to help translate that passion for product that I do have through the screen during an interview. And so I think that was one of the most important skills that I learned in the program as well.
Wow, that's great. Jordan, how is staying involved in the UOSPM program help you maintain a connection to sport and navigate your career?
I definitely would say it's brought me back to the passion and joy of what started it all for me. I unfortunately was that 2020 class that abruptly had to get sent home.
Oh,
We were actually about to head to the NCAA tournament. We punched our ticket to the NCAA tournament that year, and I got to celebrate a championship on our home court. I do get to say that, I ended my career on a win, so that was exciting. But that was the end of that. It abruptly came to an end. And at that moment, I was like, okay, I guess I should just start my career. I mean, what I've been preparing for and telling myself all this time, one day it is going to end. But what I didn't realize, I mean, I had a great opportunity to start my engineering career, but it just wasn't something that I was passionate about, that getting up every single day, that I was putting forth, I talk about effort and my best. That drive just wasn't there. And fortunately, getting the opportunity to coach young girls, make an impact in a different way, opposed to on the court, I was doing it off the court, really drove that passion and that drive again. And it really led me to, hey, like, how can I make this happen in this space and also help others, and still be close to the sport that I love? And the SPM program has definitely ignited that and further pushed that, in terms of what I'm doing today. And I mean, I'm smiling like ear to ear because every time I think about it, I'm like thankful just for the opportunity to have that. Not a lot of people, are able to do that, and being able to blend my passions of what I love, like product and sneakers and injury prevention, into what I'm doing now. What came to a close so quickly has now opened a new door into an exciting new journey, in life for myself. So
That's great. Well, I have you. I do want to touch on a point about mentors or role models. I'll start with you, Jordan. Do you have any mentors or role models who helped guide your transition into this post-athletic part or identity, let's say?
Oh, absolutely. So many, so many. I could start with my high school coach, Steve Silver. I actually went back to coach with him, after graduating, and he's always been someone who's been in my corner in terms of on and off the court lifestyle, and has definitely supported me in that space. Same with my AU coach, Walter Welsh. He has touched some of the greatest athletes you see on the TV today. Aaliyah Boston, who plays for the Indiana Fever. Jocelyn Willoughby, who was a UVA graduate and also played for the New York Liberty. He's someone who, after basketball, has always looked out for me and supported me in this journey, and actually has connected me to a great mentor out here, Vanessa Giddon, who is a merchant for Jordan Brand, and actually has a similar background to me in terms of being Caribbean, coming to America, playing at a high elite level, and then one day the ball stops bouncing for her and she has to continue her career in a different way. So those people, I mean, I could go on and on and on about the amount of mentors and supportive people I have in my life, but just in terms of what has happened in the last like 18 to 24 months, those are the people that are helping to push my career forward or inspiring me. So yeah.
That's great. Kylee, how about yourself? Do you have any role models or mentors that have helped you?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's so important to have mentors to guide you through this industry and through life in general. I mean, in the SPM program, instructors like John Notar or Elizabeth Brock Jones were so incredible in their guidance and just being so helpful in their mentorship overall. The program also connected me with a mentor during my time, Lauren Bryan, who was so helpful and just supportive throughout my whole job interviewing process. And then even when I got to New Balance, I asked for a mentor. I had seen how beneficial those mentors had been and how much I value those relationships. And so I went out and asked for a mentor. And in the end, that mentor that I'd asked for 3 years ago when I first started is now my manager. So things really do come full circle.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Darrien, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at every company I've worked at, I've walked away with somebody who's been incredibly influential in my career. When I was up for a leadership role at Adidas, I actually reached all the way back to my first manager at Nike, who hired me as a senior admin assistant. And she said to me, she was like, I know this isn't really what you want to do. She goes, but what is it that interests you? I was new into the industry, and her really asking me that question and helping me think through those things. I called back on her, 10 years later in my career and asked her to be a reference for me. And she's like, well, my goodness, we haven't worked together in forever. And, your career just started. She's like, but absolutely, so it's so important to, build a community and a network for yourself to lean on, to learn from, and to really help yourself grow. So absolutely, at all the places I've worked, I've been really blessed that way.
So important. And Melanie, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the same as everyone, there always seems to be someone that you gravitate towards in a company that you're working with, that you connect with. And again, being very fortunate along the way to have come across a lot of those people, but also because I've continued sport for so long, I've really come across, you know, again, in the triathlon world, in training for an Ironman, you spend a lot of time on your bike. In training with fellow athletes, we do a lot of mentoring on the bike. We have discussions, we talk about our careers, very, very different parallels, you know, with IT, with me, with marketing, with medical, and there's been a lot of sort of casual mentoring in that way. And I suppose my advice would be to people to stay connected to sport, connect with leaders in your sport, ask questions, start to give back, like Jordan, you're mentioning now, what you get from mentoring other athletes. I mean, that hones your skills as a future mentor as well. So yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, we all talk about networking. It was very, very informal when I was in an early part of my career, but it has, you know, and I think one of the big transitions I've seen in a corporate environment in the later part of my career has been these formal mentoring programs that have been set up. And again, some work better than others, and sometimes you feel, well, I don't really fit in that one, I fit in this one over here. But just being open to any and all, and just having, you know, that everyone talks about a growth mindset, but really being open to how are you, what is this person's leadership skill, what should my leadership skill be? And I think one, you know, going into leadership positions in your career as you go along is really, you can't fake leadership. You have to have your own leadership style, and you can read all the books, and they are very useful to work out, you know, where do I fit in this pie of leadership? And sport really, really has shaped my leadership style. It's definitely, you know, again, saying grounded in that consistency, in being open, listening, micro goals, and giving that forward to any team that I manage as well. And yeah, I've been blessed again with some great mentors. I've worked in very heavily female oriented companies and very heavily male oriented companies in the sports environment. And I have to say my mentors have taken me well through both of those.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. And I know we have a couple questions. I want to kind of finish on this topic of networking. You touched it so well, Melanie. Jordan, what advice would you give to current student athletes or early career professionals about preparing for life after sports? We touched on networking, which can feel very unnatural at first. We've all kind of talked about how do we prepare our own story as we go out there. But Jordan, what would you give as just some help to the folks here today who are guests of this workshop?
Well, for one, why we're all here, right, sharing our experiences, really honing in on the experiences that you've gone through as an athlete is very important. I think when I first started the program here, I almost felt like I was being overwhelming just telling my story over and over again, but understanding that I've gone through those experiences, and the consumers that we are serving in this industry are people who are going to be going through the same thing. So the impact of your experiences is definitely very key. So don't shy away from sharing that experience. I think is super helpful in terms of being successful in this industry. I think the second thing is just being confident. Like I touched on before, I think athletics provides a platform for leadership. I think one thing, especially as females in this industry, is to get more leaders into the room to speak up and feel confident about what you have to say. And I think all of us could attest that we had to learn that in our own sports, and to translate like that into the workroom, into the business meeting. I've definitely honed in on that skill as well, moving into this industry.
Nice. Thank you. Darrien, do you have any advice to current student athletes, or maybe what you would say to yourself if you were still a student athlete transitioning into career?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest advice that I can give and that I follow myself is networking. It's not what you know, it's who you know,
Yeah.
and be relentless about that. Find your way and start reaching out to people and starting conversations, right? It's about connection, and you never know what nugget or piece of advice or contact you might get just from talking to someone. I like to say all the jobs I've ever had have been through someone I networked with. It's not because I applied online and I mysteriously got it.
Right.
I had to do the work to seek people out and learn, and you know, it also prepares you, because I know you had mentioned about telling your story. It also prepares you because in those conversations you start to build that for yourself. So it's good practice as well. So yeah, networking all day, every day.
I love it. I love it. And Kylie, what the same last question for you in terms of advice that you'd give to current student athletes or young people who are transitioning into a career?
Yeah, I would have to echo a lot of what Darrien said, because I know that networking in general can be so intimidating, but like she said, it's so important. You can apply for 1,000 jobs, but you need someone to pull your resume, and having that connection, having that person to, nudge the hiring manager or the recruiter to take a look at your work is really going to make the biggest difference. And so just networking, being curious. I mean, there's so much you can learn from people during quick 20, 30-minute networking chats. I mean, it's funny even this group, because thinking back to my time at SCM, I spoke with Darrien, and she was nice enough to answer my LinkedIn message and have a 30-minute chat with me. And so
Awesome.
reaching out, making those connections, and just in the least you're learning about a role maybe you weren't familiar enough at a company you haven't worked at. So there's a lot of opportunity to be curious and learn.
That's great. Thank you so much. We do have a couple questions that came through. Thank you very much. There's one here from Lynn's. Let's see. What would be the best advice for a former collegiate athlete who is finding their way into the sport product industry but has no experience yet? And she says, I will be joining the SPM program fall of 2025. Kylie, do you want to take that?
Definitely. Well, first, welcome to the program. You're going to have a great time. But I would say really identify what you're looking to do, what you're passionate about, because there are so many entry-level retail opportunities to get in the marketplace and learn about the consumer. For example, if you want to make running product like I do, working at your local run specialty store, Portland Running Company that's not too far from SPN campus, being there, talking to the consumer every day, learning about the incredible competitive set of products, it can be so valuable. So finding whatever it is that you can do, I think retail experience is a way that you can really bring a ton of value to whatever first role you have, to know that consumer, know the retail landscape like the back of your hand.
That's excellent. Excellent. Any other questions coming in that I may not be able to see?
Cynthia,
Yeah.
I have one.
Great.
Hi, everybody. So I think, Melanie, you mentioned that, women athletes have a tendency to undersell themselves. And we see that on Launchbreak as well. Like very often we notice even on LinkedIn profiles, some of our athletes don't even mention their athletic experience. So just wondering if you want to expand on what you were saying before and have any tips for athletes to really kind of sell their story and make sure that they're maximizing, all of their experiences.
Yeah, and again, as I said, I think I said in our conversations we had before this panel is, I've been on the receiving end of resumes from Olympians, collegiate athletes, and I know what they bring to the table, but I'm always, well, not always, in many instances, I've been a little bit shocked at how they have undersold their sport experience. And again, I think, looking at, when you're building your resume, when you're building your LinkedIn profile, is to, really start to look at, and again, this is where, keeping involved with the sport can then help you identify what skills that you have, using terms like leading with structure, goal focused, performing under pressure, things that you think are everyday people skills because you're doing them every day and they are second nature to you. I mean, as Jordan said, setting an alarm for 4 o'clock, not everyone does that, Jordan. And I think a lot of athletes, that I've coached that have then gone into a corporate career, some of them are actually quite shocked at how people don't think like them. And then the penny starts to drop. Well, actually, I do have a little bit of a different mindset because of what the career that I've had as an athlete. So yeah, I would take a very long, hard look at, again, the skills that you think are normal are actually not normal for a lot of people. And really start to hone in on those and call them out and write them down and keep writing them down. And again, I think we've talked about networking here and being curious and getting yourself out there and talking to people. The more you talk about yourself, and again, this is not innate for everyone, the better storytelling you have, the better you can see, oh, this person is reacting to this kind of skill that I have. So yeah, I think starting to think of that as you are a student athlete is really start to think, what do I bring to the table that my peers don't, that my non-athlete friends don't? Start to note them down, start to just fine tune them. You've got the time, well, I say you haven't got the time if you're a student athlete, but you've got time while you're in academia to really start to think, right, what am I doing every day? Right, keep a diary, keep a journal, then you can look back on it in your final year and say, right, here's really where I turned up and I did the work. And again, getting that resume together, getting your LinkedIn profile, which is obviously, more important than ever now. Getting other people to read them, asking other people, asking your peers, what do you think my skills are? And another way I work with athletes a lot is asking them to, and again, talking about yourself is not innate for everyone, is to say, well, who do you admire? What skills do they have? What qualities do they have? And usually it's a reflection of the qualities that you have yourself as well. So yeah, I really think taking a little bit of step back, looking at how you've trained, looking at the structure that you've followed, and really start early, start owning your journey as an athlete. You might not think it, but every day as an athlete, you are building skills. You might not know it at the time, but you are. And again, I think asking for that feedback. Fortunately, we live now in a world where I think people realize you don't have to be perfect. And actually asking for feedback from people, even if it's feedback from your coach, who will probably be giving it to you anyway, asking them for a little bit more advice. Okay, you've given me this feedback, yeah, we'll work on that in an athletic sense, but really, what do you think of, where I can bring more to the table as a team member or as a leader? And those are all skills that you can hone as you go through a collegiate career. That you can then slap on that resume, get it on your LinkedIn profile, and then start talking about it with your peers and those in the networking circle.
Great. That's great advice. We did get a question about the traditional creation process. Darrien, the question is, how has your experience and identity as an athlete helped to push the traditional creation process within product? This is particularly for footwear, but any product, to move beyond a shrink it and pink it mentality. We've heard that.
I have to be honest, I don't really know what shrink it and pink it is. I'm maybe I'm missing the boat there, but I can take a stab at this one just to say, I think as athletes, we're familiar with taking risks. We're open to trying things and refining things and really learning from trying an effort, right? So, I think one example in the industry that there's the real push is digital, right? And the footwear industry is a very traditional process, and introducing digital as a new idea, even though it's not really new, but it's a tough one for a lot of traditional minded folks to adopt. So I think, it really just comes back to mindset, being open-minded, being willing to take risks, being comfortable with failure and learning from those lessons to really challenge the status quo. There's tons of opportunity for the industry to evolve, and it really takes people coming in with fresh ideas and an open mind, and some of those skill sets that we've learned as athletes to really bring that in and shake it up.
Thank you so much. And I think Philippa is going to close, but I do want to, I can't believe it's already 7:55. We got a Knicks game here, people, in 5 minutes. Geez, that went fast. But thank you. And Philippa will close, but thanks you guys you're incredible. You guys are great panelists. You were so honest and I really loved your insight and inspiration. I hope the group here took advantage of taking notes, and I loved so many of the quotes that you guys came up with were very from the heart and authentic. And thank you to the University of Oregon's SPM program and of course Launchbreak. Philippa, I'll have you close.
Yeah, and I don't even know what else I can add to that except thank you, everyone. Thank you so much to Francine and Jennifer. Thank you to everyone who participated tonight. Shrink it, pink it, can't coexist with growth and comfort at the same time. I mean, just so many little pearls of wisdom, taking risks. You guys were all amazing, and thank you so much, and thank you. Have a good night, and let's go Knicks. Now, I'm sure we have other fans here, so let's just all be supportive of all sports.
No, it's
Thank you.
It's go Knicks. It's go Knicks.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.